Hello and welcome to the Buckets and Tea NBA show. I'm your host, Cathryn Naiker. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Joining me today, very special guest. She is the host of the Ringer WNBA show and fellow Canadian. We're already bonding. It's Seerat Sohi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much for being on this show. I mean, you've been doing so much WNBA coverage as of late. You wrote an amazing, extensive article about March Madness. Highly, highly recommend it, everyone, to please check it out. It's this combination of extremely thorough, but also an amazing overview at the same time. Like if you are like trying to jump into March Madness for the first time and you're not really sure who like the big names are or the things to look out for, this article will like legitimately do that for you. So well done on that.
Thank you. What I tried to do was make it accessible for people because I know that there are a lot of new fans. I'm newer to the space myself, but I also wanted to throw in enough things that if you were watching the game at a bar with some friends and like let's say Paige Beckers hits a big shot, and then you can just be like da 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 da. Did you also know this? Like your friends would be impressed. It'd be like, wow, that person is super locked in.
Yeah, or if you're doing like brackets, like if you're doing that with
Brackets,
your friends,
gambling, yeah,
all of that.
any of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. The show does not have a gambling sponsor yet, but feel free to introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah, like I can help. I can throw in some parlays.
There we
For
go.
when does this come out?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
So we
Well,
record on Thursdays, it comes out on Friday.
okay. Well, all of my parlays will be
We'll be
decided by
passing.
then. Yeah, will probably be decided by the time that most people listen to it, unless you got like a morning listener that immediately locks in. Wait, can you gamble in Ontario yet?
Oh yeah.
Like legal? Okay, cool.
Yeah, sports betting's all the rage here.
Hell yeah. I mean, yeah. Hell something. Hell.
Hell something.
Hell for sure.
Yeah, I didn't realize that like Texas has a whole thing that where they don't allow gambling still.
California
I
doesn't
learned
either.
that with the whole like Maverick saga
Oh
with
yeah.
Luka being traded and those owners and all of that.
The Vegas conspiracy theories and all of that.
Yeah, yeah, I talked
Yeah.
about that on here a few weeks ago. I think
What what's
there's something to it. I
what's your
don't
take
know.
on that? What's yeah, where are you at on
It's
it?
such a to me like everything that they said about Luka just doesn't ring true in terms of why they traded him. Like it just doesn't.
Mhm.
So I feel like when you know you're being lied to, there's
Yeah.
something else going on. So I do think there's something going on there. Like I don't
Yeah.
think it's like, oh, we don't believe in his future or he's out of shape. Like I'm not buying that. Literally no one is. Like I think
Mhm.
they failed in trying to convince us or find a better reason for all of this,
Yeah.
but there's definitely something going on behind the scenes there.
It has been incredible to watch, like, every NBA fan I know and, like, everybody that exists in the NBA space just kind of collectively turn into a girlfriend who's been gaslit and manipulated so much that they just start, like, throwing out any possible theory, like, they know they're being lied to, they don't have the full picture of what's going on, so they're just, like,
Yeah.
spitting at hairs, like, they're just if Nico has an IG, uh, profile. I imagine it's not public and it probably doesn't allow comments anymore, but like whatever
No.
equivalent of that there is, like we were scrolling, we were in 2011, accidentally liking stuff. Like it's just kind of made everyone a little bit loopy. Myself
Yeah, I
included.
mean, I can't believe he wasn't just immediately put into witness protection. Like I was just like, how is this guy like just at games with like no bodyguards around him?
Yeah. Did you know that if you get put into witness protection, they actually encourage you to like maintain a name that's like pretty similar to the one that you have right now, so that when somebody says your name, you're actually more likely to like turn around and react to it. So you
Oh,
could go,
I didn't
yeah,
know that.
yeah, you could go by like Nick Harris or something.
That's actually a
He's too
very
famous, so
smooth transition for
yeah,
him.
yeah,
I feel like with me that would be harder. It'd just be like Kate something. Like I
yeah,
don't even know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway. Love that for us.
yeah.
Okay, you know what we're gonna do in this episode is a bit different. I want to talk about the WNBA. I want to talk about women's March Madness and talk a bit about the Toronto Tempo. So the Toronto Tempo are going to debut in May 2026. The maybe in April next year we'll be having a draft. In terms of the draft lottery, like last year they automatically made the Golden State Valkyries the 5th spot. Next year there's going to be 2 expansion teams, Toronto and Portland, so I'm not sure exactly where we're going to fall into that. They haven't announced that yet, but
Do you
because
think
we're
they'll flip a coin? Are they gonna flip an American coin or a Canadian coin? That feels like it needs to be
different,
part of
slightly
it.
different shape, texture.
Yeah, exactly,
I don't
exactly. I
know.
prefer Canadian coins. Like, they just feel a lot better, and, like, they have, like, this, like, ribbed texture on
Mhm.
the side that the American coins don't.
So let's like talk a bit about March Madness. So for people who are kind of new to women's basketball, which I'm assuming are many listeners of this podcast, some of the big players right now, Paige Beckers, she'll be in this year's draft. She'll go number 1 without question.
Mhm.
I mean, you said it best, like she's kind of like if you were to create a basketball player in a lab, like that's Paige, which was interesting because that sentiment reminded me a lot of LeBron James. Like LeBron, like
Mhm.
people said that about him back in like 2003. Like if you could create a basketball player in a lab, it would be him. So, we've got her this year with UConn. Do you think UConn's going all the way this year?
So this is the part of my bracket that I've been going back and forth on a
Mm.
lot because we're actually gonna have an Elite 8 rematch between Juju Watkins, future Toronto Raptor.
Let's hope. Yeah,
Future
yeah.
Toronto Tempo, rather. Gotta get used to that. That we could
Honestly,
that
she can play for the Raptors if she wants.
she
Like
could. I mean, hey,
I would
last
have
time,
her back any
yeah,
day.
the last time Toronto drafted a USC player who was from the LA area, it went pretty damn well. So
Mhm.
I'm ready to run it back. I'm ready to run it
Mhm.
back for sure. But they're meeting up in the Elite Eight. And I definitely don't think USC is happy about that. Their coach is not thrilled that that's like the path they have to go down after getting the number 1 seed. But they also, if you want to do a little bit of history here, there's a kind of a budding rivalry because last year Juju and Paige met in the Elite 8 as well, and Juju lost, and at the end, she's very tearful. She's crying. Paige goes up to her, she consoles her, and I don't know what she said to her, but they had a little bit of a moment, and then they met in the regular season. USC got the best of UConn in that one, and now this is part 3. I personally love it. I know everybody wanted
Mhm.
to see it in the Final Four, but I think it's a great lead-in because whoever goes into the Final Four can now be like, yeah, and they had to beat Juju to get there. They had to beat Paige to get there. Um, to answer your question, though, I don't know. I keep clicking both on my bracket. I haven't submitted yet. I'm gonna do it
Right.
tonight. How deep do you want me to get into the X's and O's of like all of that? Like, where are you at on that?
Well, just like, like a medium.
A medium? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Like your afternoon green tea. You know what I
your
mean? Like
afternoon, my afternoon green
it's
tea.
not a full on
Well,
espresso.
I do have some ginger in there and a little bit
Oh,
of
very
lemon
nice.
as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
okay, so Juju is kind of like she actually does remind me of DeMar DeRozan. She's got an incredible post back. She's a very crafty player. She's got a little bit of mellow. She trains with Phil Handy, who is
Yeah, love
who
Phil.
famously, hey, won a title with the Raptors. Great player development coach. But she does kind of have moves that if like you're like a newer fan, like she has sort of the movement patterns of a men's basketball player in a lot of different ways, which we're gonna see now. Like the development has got so much better. Like there's so many more resources for like young women in the basketball space now. So like she's kind of like one of the first big beneficiaries of that you can see very clearly. Um, yeah, she's a really fun watch. She's incredibly athletic, like transition terror. You kind of always have to put 2 on her. If you don't, she's gonna destroy you. Like if you don't put 2 on her, I don't really know what you're doing. It's kind of like Caitlin Clark last year when
Mm.
she talked about like, yeah, like now that I'm in the pros, like I look at these college defense and I'm like, why are you guys guarding me like this? Like Juju's kind of going through that right now. She's just an incredible player. She can do everything. She's a great 2-way player. Um, and then Paige, yeah, like she's like really efficient. But the only thing with Paige is sometimes you worry that she doesn't shoot enough. Whereas Juju, maybe it's the opposite problem. Like she's getting after it. Juju's
Right.
leaving it all on the floor, like no matter what. With Paige, she's very egalitarian. Like she wants to get everybody involved. She always makes like the right hit ahead play. Like she's kind of like a basketball coach. On the floor in a way, right? Like if John Wooden could make a player, like it would be a lot like Paige Beckers. Like she's
Mm.
always just making like the decision that makes like you're like your dad who like really loves like basketball and like he's just thrilled with Paige Beckers. Like they love the way that Paige Beckers plays. But yeah, both really evenly matched teams. Right now, I'm kind of leaning towards USC right now because I just don't think Juju can be stopped. I think she's just like really smart. She's like learning to read the game a lot better. Even if she does like sort of like work through like sophomore mistakes. She's only 19 years old, which is insane. Like she could be in the WNBA right now. That's the insane thing about Juju. Like she could have gone straight out of high school. She's probably the first player that you could ever say that about. And yeah, she could go. She'd be number one this year. She would be number one next year. She can't go next year. She's going to be in 2027, which is why the tempo, they should be tanking.
We have a better chance of having a number one pick in 2027 than we do in 2026.
Yeah,
because of the expansion rules. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it probably will be like you said, the 4 or 5 or the 5 and 6, like what happened with the Valkyries. And the Valkyries have been pretty like they haven't been able to attract free agents. I don't expect their team to be very good. And I imagine Toronto and Portland will be even worse because there's just going to be like a more diluted talent pool to be trying to pluck players out of. So, and I don't think that at that range in 2026 you're drafting a star that's going to like change everything for you. But that is good. Like 2027 is an insane draft.
Right.
Like beyond Juju, if you are like tuning in for the first time with some of these teams, if you put on Notre Dame, watch Hannah Hidalgo, she is definitely somebody who can be top 3 in that draft. Definitely somebody who can be like a superstar. As well. Like there's a lot of players. Madison Booker on Texas. That sophomore class is just absolutely stacked.
Yeah, and like for people who don't know, like in women's basketball, people play the 4 years. Like it's almost it almost never happens that someone leaves early. Am I right about that? Maybe
you can't. Like you have to be at least 21. If you're 21 by the time you graduate your 3rd season, which is the case for Olivia Miles, who's also on Notre Dame, but she'll probably go in this draft. If she doesn't, she's somebody for Tempo fans to watch in that like 4, 5, 6 range, wherever. Great point guard, wears goggles. That like I love when a player has the costume that like fits what their style is. It's like a video game character. She wears these goggles and she's also just like one of the best pick and roll passers and like a great transition passer and like really crafty and like, you know, will throw an elbow pass, throw like a behind, like she's just really crafty. And Hannah, similarly in that way, is like very fiery and has this like, you know, orange afro that you just see bumping up like up and down the court when she's playing. Really, really appreciate them both committing to the bit in that regard. But yeah, so Juju is not going to be 21.
It's great when you can draw like a silhouette of a person and you immediately know who it is.
Exactly. Yeah. You have that for both of them.
I also love the goggles because I'm a glasses wearer and like I don't wear contacts. Like I don't want to touch my eyeball. Like it's just something I don't want to do. Okay. So what I feel like if I were a player, I would be a goggles wearer. As long as they don't like steam up on me.
Thing for you or
no, it's not a germ thing. It's just I fear hurting my eyes. Like I fear injuring my eyes.
Okay.
Is that crazy? I'll tell. Okay, this is good.
I'm not a doctor, so
listen. This is real sideways for the show, but we do this all the time. So when I was 6 years old, okay, core memory, my grandma like comes into the room. I'm like watching TV, right? And my grandma asks me like, "Oh, what are you watching?" And I try to be all cute and be like, but instead of like touching my forehead, I like poked my own eye. And I scratched my eye and I had to wear an eye patch for a whole week.
Oh my God. Okay, so this is childhood trauma.
I mean, like, it would probably be so cute to see like little 6-year-old me with an eye patch, but like being the person with the eye patch on, like I remember like just trying to do like regular things and just falling.
How were the kids at school about it?
Spatial awareness. The kids at school were actually not terrible about it. Like it was more like questions because I think like 6 years old was maybe like just a bit too young for like major bullying. But
also, eye patch is cool at that age.
Yeah, like it was kind of cool. It's like, like it was like a cool injury maybe. But I remember like trying to write
the kids like, you know, like that age, you just want attention for anything. So like people were probably like, oh, I wish I had an eye injury so I could wear an eye patch.
Yeah. like they want to copy me. I was never
Yeah.
that cool, but
Okay.
yes, thank you for thinking that. Yeah, just trying to ride my bike, going like 2 pedals and then just immediately like keeling over.
Oh, no.
Like just a bumbling fool. Anyway, this is why all to say this is why I would be a goggles wearing basketball
Okay.
player.
Yeah, valid.
And I
Totally
like
valid.
it when I see other people with the goggles.
Yeah.
I was hoping Scotty Barnes would stick with goggles because he had to wear them earlier this season, but he
Yeah.
couldn't wait to take them off. So
Yeah.
disappointing. And
Yeah.
then I
No,
told the
more
Raptors Republic
representation.
people, thank you. I told the Raptors Republic people that they should do a video of Scotty with the Sarah McLachlan song I Will Remember You as a tribute to the goggles. They never did
Mhm.
it.
Damn it.
They never did it. But this
Why
is the
not?
kind of content I'm here to provide, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
thank
would like
you.
to see it.
Right? Thank you. Well, one day, the next time
Yeah.
a player, the next time a Toronto Raptor has to wear goggles, we'll do it.
Okay.
But okay, I wanted to getting back on topic here. I wanted to ask you about no first of all, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
That's how we say it.
Is it?
Is it it's not Notre Dame?
I believe it's Notre
I've
Dame.
been saying it interchangeably on
Yeah.
the Pickup WNBA podcast, like as if I'm a Canadian politician and I'm saying everything in French and English. Like I've been
You're just
pronouncing
revving up
it
for the election
both
here.
ways. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
pronouncing it both ways
Yeah.
simultaneously all the time. But anyways, I wanted to ask you about Notre Dame because I feel like they could be an upset team
Yeah.
because I
Definitely.
feel like like they're not necessarily ranked like at the very top, but based on like the players that you described, you talked about Olivia and Hannah. Sorry, I need to pull up their full names. There's
Yeah.
another one too,
Yeah.
another
Olivia Miles, Hannah Hidalgo, and Sonia Citron, who will probably
so
go
Sonia
third. Yeah.
Citron. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. We all, and Leah Two King, who was also on the Rigor WNBA podcast. Just gonna
Oh,
take a
very
minute to plug
nice.
that. She was a
Yes,
great
yes.
interviewer. She was very fun to talk to.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
I just feel like, between having like really strong point guards and then Hannah, who was like she was a defensive player of the year.
Mhm.
I feel like that like and plus like just like that hype man quality that they have in just quote unquote good vibes. I just feel like they have a winning recipe as a
They
team.
absolutely do. They absolutely do. So Notre Dame is the number 3 seed in what I think is the most difficult bracket. They actually spent most of the season at number 2, and there was a point that they were actually number 1, but they had a tough end to the regular season. They lost the ACC regular season title, and then they went out early in the tournament, and they just kind of their defense just hasn't been what it was at the start of the season, and it's sort of that was the domino that just makes everything hard for them because they're a transition team. Like Hannah Hidalgo is insane. I think she's like the steals leader in the time that she's been in college, and she's just one of the most fun players I've ever seen play basketball. She's like 5'6", she's rail thin. Despite that, she manages to be one of the best defenders in the nation, maybe the best one-on-one. She just gets under people. She's very energetic. Like she has a high motor. She's a type of player when you watch her, you just fall in love with her. And like she just has like these awesome finishing moves. Like if you're like a yeah, like think like I mean this is like a little bit dramatic, but if you're like making like an NBA comparison, like just to try to make it accessible for people, like an Allen Iverson relentlessness almost, and that same sort of
Mm.
size thing that makes you think like you start saying like
Like
oh
how is he
pound
doing
for
all this?
pound, like
Yeah, yeah.
there really is a quality of like well, how the hell is she doing this? Like she just shouldn't be able to do it on either end, but she's just a really fun player to watch. Like definitely a highlight reel waiting to happen. Then she plays next to a great point guard in Olivia Miles, who's like so crafty. And then Sony is just like a great shooter, classic 3-and-D player, like gonna be a good WNBA player when she goes into the draft. Leah Two King is like an undersized power forward who just gets like every offensive rebound, is like super athletic and like just kind of all over the place. They have a lot going for them, and I think they only really are like the number 3 seed because they just sort of fell off a cliff towards the end. So like the real thing with them is just like, are they going to show up and like be rested and like whatever happened to their defense? Do they figure it out? And then can they like come out and be the team that they were? Because that team actually beat Texas, who is in there, who is like the like if everything goes chalk, which I don't think it will, is a projected matchup. They beat Texas in overtime earlier this season. But to do that, they got to get through TCU, She's a number 2 seed, and TCU is very good. They have Haley Van Lith, who,
Mhm.
if people recall, was the recipient of being in a lot of memes because
The
for whatever reason,
meme,
LSU
yeah.
coach Kim Mulkey decided that she should be guarding Caitlin Clark one-on-one
One-on-one.
in an
Yeah.
Elite Eight game, which was not Haley Van Lith's fault at all. But she's had an awesome comeback season for TCU. She's a great story. So Notre Dame will have to get through them. I think if they're at their best, if they are like who we think they are, then they will. If not, then they might even be out earlier than that because they play a Michigan team potentially in the second round, who has Silas Swords, who is Canadian. Like they play really fun style of basketball. Like she's a freshman, so if you get in now, you got like 3 years of fandom. Very crafty player. Played on the Canadian national team, and it's just like like nice hezzy, like nice layup package, just like good defender. Easy to just be like like you'll like one of the players like you notice when you're watching a game for sure.
Right. I mean, that's awesome. I feel like this is definitely must-watch games, and I'm really excited to jump into it because honestly, like previous years, I haven't been as into NCAA basketball, but my love for the WNBA has gotten me
Mm,
into NCAA women's basketball because you do see them for the 4 years in
yeah,
college and you get to see like their growth, and like I just feel like you get to invest in them more in their college experience. And then also too, I feel like that kind of like trickles into the WNBA more, where I feel like, like the UConn players, it's like you always talk about the fact that they were a UConn player. Or like Asia
yeah.
Wilson has like a statue outside of her
Mhm.
school. Like it's like crazy.
Yeah, it's just different, right? Like, and we don't really get that a lot in sports. Like, I do think that's part of the reason that like we've
Mm.
seen this huge, boom in popularity for women's basketball is like, I think people like the tradition. I think they like that every school has its own sort of identity too, right? Like you tune into an LSU game and it's like there's this pomp and circumstance to it, right? Like the marching band is also playing like Southern rap and like or they might be playing a Flau'jae Johnson song because she herself is a rapper. And you got Kim Mulkey just wearing like the most Kim Mulkey thing that you could possibly imagine, right? Like all these teams have this identity that like visually you can get a grasp of right away, and they usually play the same style of basketball for like decades as well. Like if
Yeah.
you have the same coach, so if you like a certain style, like you can just lock in on that, and like that that's that team. And then there's a styles make fights part of it too, right? Like you are gonna then get those like offense defense like pace versus like half court clashes that I think people are really drawn to as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to talk a bit about the tempo as well.
Mhm.
Super exciting for us to have a team in Canada, in Toronto, debuting next year. We have the name, we've got the logo, we've got Serena Williams now. You
Yeah.
know, it's a year away, but I think like it, what I'm saying is there something right now that people should be looking out for
Like
next year?
through the course of the tournament.
Through the course of the tournament, throughout like or even throughout the WNBA season, what do you
Yeah.
think is gonna be, like, impactful?
I mean, as far as immediacy, I would watch players I would watch in the tournament right now. Flau'jae Johnson is definitely somebody who could be available in that 4 to 5 to 6 range. She is, I just mentioned her, she plays for LSU. She's a guard. She's coming off an injury right now, so if she doesn't play well, it's probably going to be because of that. But she's a great she's a great player. Has just like a really like silky smooth game and also like a really good clutch player. Like she shows up when it matters. Okay, hold on. It really is me and my green tea against the world today. Oh my god.
All good. This is buckets and tea, and I always just have water. It's
Hey.
wild. It's wild.
Wow. Wow. I didn't even make that connection. Who else? Lauren Betts is probably going number 1 in 2026. She plays for UCLA. She's a center, National Player of the Year candidate. She's probably out of range, but tune in, whatever. Her teammate Janiyah Barker and Kiki Rice, they could definitely both be in that range as well. So watch them. And then 2027 is really the one. Like when you want to start like dreaming big about these things, like the potential of having a Hannah, Juju, Maddie Booker, like gosh, who else? Like there's so many good players in that draft. Malaysia Wiley in South Carolina is a really fun player as well. She's like she comes off the bench, but she's like just electric. Like every time she comes into the game, something exciting happens. Yeah, I mean that's like as far as draft goes, WNBA season. I feel like yeah, like the Valkyries probably right. Like just seeing how they do things their first season.
Because it's
Like
the first expansion team in a long time.
yeah,
The
when was the
Valkyries,
last
yeah.
expansion team?
I don't even know. Because we've had teams end and then we've had teams move.
Yeah.
I don't actually recall the last time there was an expansion team.
Oof, yeah, that goes way beyond my knowledge for sure as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's I would say watch the Valkyries and just kind of how they do things. And I do think there's a lot of similarities because they also, you know, have the backing of an NBA team that is willing to put in resources and spend and like understands how to run a team, understands player experience, and is going to be able to provide those things as well. And 2026 is going to be so different though because everybody's going to be a free agent. Like basically all but two players,
Literally everyone.
like everybody who isn't on a rookie scale contract and like a couple free agents basically just like have their contracts ending in 2026 because they knew with the new CBA coming in, the cap would spike and everybody wants to get in on that. So Toronto could potentially try to make themselves into a huge free agency destination. The Valkyries tried and it didn't necessarily work out for them, but like it's just 2026 is going to be like an insane free fall.
I think
Literally
the
everybody's a free
CBA,
agent.
yeah, like I think the CBA probably had something to do with that too, right? Like,
Mhm.
so let's break this down because I this is another topic I wanted to get into. So, in the W, right, like the last CBA they negotiated was in 2020,
Mhm.
right? A lot has changed
Yeah.
since 2020. So much more money has come into the league. We're not talking about a league that isn't quote unquote profitable anymore. Like all those conversations have really died.
Yeah.
The sport's growing, they're growing, and there's a difference between each team owner in terms of how much they've invested in the teams, in
Mhm.
terms of like facilities, travel, all these different things. Like you have teams that have like world class practice facilities and you have teams practicing in literal like community center gyms. Like there's a massive
Mhm.
disparity, which has also happened within the last 5 years because the sport's been growing. Now we're at a point where we're negotiating a new CBA with all this money. It's going to be a wild negotiation. Angel Reese on her podcast was already talking about a possible lockout, which I actually think could very well happen, but the WNBA off season's so long. So I don't know if it's going to like actually bleed into the next season because they have like 6 months
Yeah, they've got a lot of time
yeah,
to
they've got
yeah.
6 months to negotiate this thing. It
Mhm.
could delay things like free agency, which are typically end of January,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But I think we're gonna see a massive shift, and so much of like this season is gonna be like you said, either put on hold or what have you for next year, and you're gonna see a lot of shifts, a lot of player movement, a lot of longer term contracts, a lot of
Mhm.
bigger contracts. It's going to be absolutely nuts. And as an expansion team, it'll be super interesting to see how they'll be able to jump in on that or not.
Mhm.
But these are things to definitely look out for as the
Yeah.
team starts to shape up.
I also just wanna say, like, there's a lot of conversation about, like, the WNBA, is it profitable? Is it, like, not profitable? At the end of the day, I don't have the numbers in front of me, nobody has the numbers, those numbers are never made public, they're never made public in any league, and as we get closer to negotiation time, and we're in negotiation time right
Mhm.
now, like, they're actively like, both sides are actively meeting, um, but with every league, what we see is we start to see stories, usually leaked by ownership, about losses, right? Like this has happened in the NBA. The NBA has not had a lockout in a long time, but like this was definitely something that was happening in 2011. And there was a story last year, right after the WNBA finals, about how the WNBA lost $40 to $50 million this year. And I'm not saying that's not true. That very well could be true. But I also want to add when we talk about profitability, because I hear a lot of people say, well, where's the money going to come from? Where's the money going to come from? That conversation's over. The money is there because beyond any sort of like revenue loss aspect of this, franchise valuations have skyrocketed in a way that is absolutely unprecedented. Like I'll give you an example. The Las Vegas Aces were bought for $2 million in 2021. They, as of last year, were worth $140 million. That's 70x. And that is, from an owner who bought a team and was like, oh, I'm going to invest in them and has made a huge profit. And I'm willing to bet that it's a lot higher now because that was at the start. That was in June that valuation came out. That was before, that was obviously Caitlin Clark is in the league. That was before she really took off, before the Olympic break, all of that stuff, before these past playoffs that also set attendance records and viewership records even after she was knocked out as well. So we are seeing
Mhm.
like, the impact of her start to rise everybody, like, everybody else as well. And there have been teams since, like the Dallas was on that same valuation list, valued at $75 million. Their valuation has now gone up to $200 million. And that was before they won the draft lottery, which will give them the opportunity to take Paige Beckers as well, who, definitely, brings in her own sort of cachet and all of
Yeah,
that as well. So we're talking 70x, we're talking 100x, we're talking like 200x franchise valuations rising over the course of like the last 5 years. Like that's incredible. It is. I'm not going to say it's unprecedented. I don't know what it's, but I will say I don't know what to compare it to. Right.
sure.
And then the other thing is the media rights deal as well. The media rights deal is worth about 3 to 4 times more annually, the one that kicks in 2026, than the previous one. So there is money coming in. There is a lot of investment. There are owners that are seeing profits in their assets. They're going to try to say cash poor or whatever, but look, at the end of the day, like you sell like let's say like I can't even it would make me puke to think about like what a 1% stake in the Chicago Sky or in like the Indiana Fever with like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark would be worth right now. So the
Yeah,
money is there.
especially
Like
compared to, like, a
it's
couple of
there.
years ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then
and
sorry, one more thing on
no,
that too.
please.
It just is like one of these things like even nobody should be thinking about profits right now. Nobody should be thinking about profit at all right now. Like if you were to compare the WNBA, which was also ranked as like the number one growing brand in 2024, if you were to compare it to any business, that business would not be smart to be thinking about profits right now. They'd be thinking growth, 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 investment, investment, investment. Like, hate to sound like a crypto pro, but like, oh my god, like, like to the goddamn moon with this stuff because there is so much opportunity when these teams are invested in to profit monetarily from them. Like, it's just like, it's like Uber, not to say like hey everybody be like Uber, but that company did not run a profit for a really really long time and it was devastating for a lot of different economies. But for
Mm.
them, it was great, right? Nike was a company that did not run a profit for a very long time because they were thinking growth. Like there are a lot of companies that do this and do benefit. It's a little bit riskier, but I also think like at this point, like if you're the WNBA, I know they get a lot of crap for this, like that they're like like a subsidiary of the NBA, but they do, like, if you are already getting to benefit from the fact that like you are like the NBA is there to like deal with any windfalls, you should be taking full advantage of that and saying, okay, let's just try to see how far we can take this thing. Like right now is the time. Like this is the moment to be thinking that way.
Mhm, and, like, there's always been a lot of haters out there that have called it a charity league, but what it
Mhm.
has been and continues to be is an investment, and now we're seeing that investment really pay off, and people are just I don't know, like, everyone that I speak to is super supportive, but I know there's people out there that are, cagey sexist about the whole thing, and maybe not so cagey sexist about the whole thing.
Yeah, I feel like cagey sexism might be over. Cagey all of the isms might be over.
Yeah, maybe. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I just like,
Maybe not over, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'll have guys that are like,
We're out of
they
the
they
cage.
try to be like, "Oh, no, I'm, like, super supportive," but then they're just
Mhm.
like, "Well, it's just, like, it's not a product for me."
Yeah.
And they'll say stuff like that, and I'm like, "What?" Like, it's just like, it's sports, I don't know.
Yeah. Honestly, to me at this point, that's fine. Like, if you don't like it, you don't have to like it. Like, I think we can also move past that too. Like, it doesn't
Absolutely.
nothing has to be for everybody at all. But at this point, there are enough people that are coming in, and I do believe that there would be enough people that continue to come in that like nobody has to beg anybody to watch something or care for something that they don't actually care about. Because like the reality is, the W is also finally starting to tap into the right markets. as
Yeah.
well, like as far as consumers go, to
Mhm.
actually bring in the people who are going to give a shit as well. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like, all right, like fine, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
I
watch
completely
the
agree.
NBA. It doesn't seem like anybody like, look, I love the NBA. I cover the NBA for like a decade, but it doesn't seem like anybody's really having a good time there right now. And women's sports kind of has like all
It's
of the
always
things
like yes,
that
it's
we've been
true.
complaining about in the NBA. Like I'll sit with the game length, like the just like the stakes, people really care. There's loyalty, there's genuine beef, like there is just God, there aren't like 40,000 review stoppages, you know? Like, it's just like it has been. I will
Oh,
say, as somebody who
yeah.
grew up loving the NBA, it's been refreshing. Like, so much of it has been very refreshing.
Yeah, the reviews are not as intense in the W. Same with also, like, baiting the refs, I feel like doesn't happen as much
Yeah,
either.
it's a much more versatile play
And now
style
that
too. It's
Taurasi's
not all
retired, even less.
even less, even less,
And I love
even less.
Taurasi.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I mean, Caitlin's gonna carry that torch though. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's
she's got
true.
it. She's got
That's
it.
true.
Um,
Maybe that's why she was
yeah,
like she said on New Year she decided she was gonna retire. She
I
didn't
like,
have it in
yeah.
her. I really thought Taurasi was gonna do a victory lap season.
It would have been nice to see her also, like, in the league with Paige at the same time too. That would have been really fun.
I
Yeah.
know. Well, like Caitlin's gonna carry like that attitude torch,
Mhm.
but Paige is gonna carry the torch of the bun,
The bun, yeah. The bun for
right? Like
sure.
Paige is gonna be
The
the
Yukon.
bun,
Yeah.
the Yukon bun. So at
Yeah.
least we
And
have
Loki
that.
loves complaining to refs. Like, this is just not a thing that we talk about a lot with Paige. Like, a referee hates to see Paige coming. Hates to see her coming.
Um, did you get the chance to check out a lot of Unrivaled?
A little bit, a little bit.
Yeah. One thing
Yeah.
about Unrivaled I really love, this is so silly, but because they had Sephora as a major sponsor, the refs had
Yes.
Sephora jerseys, and I was like, "Those jerseys are actually kinda nice."
They're great.
Like, that
Like
was a stylish
mhm.
jersey.
They were, and I also feel like the refs were kind of feeling themselves, like, in their movement patterns and stuff,
Yeah, they
they
were.
were giving. I fear
Also
they
too,
were
because
giving
it's
bad.
3-on-3 basketball, and there were still
Mhm.
3 refs on the court. It's like, that was
Yeah,
also wild to
do you
me.
think that they were all just like, "Okay, you take this player?"
Yeah, I mean, I guess, or like this matchup,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Etcetera.
or this
Probably.
matchup, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But, anyway, just wild stuff. I really enjoyed Unrivaled. I mean, here in Canada, it wasn't broadcast or showcased properly. Like TSN was, like, gatekeeping it on TSN Plus,
It's
and I
fine.
didn't really appreciate that. I felt
Yeah.
like, just, like, get it out there. But, one thing I hope they do next year is I think, like, the way they structured the 3-on-3 basketball was really fun. Frankly, it was way more interesting than the Olympics. Like, if you
Mhm.
watch 3-on-3 basketball in the Olympics, there was just something, like just a lack of energy to
Yeah, I
it,
like
but
the
this
full court, like the
yeah,
70
the full
feet, yeah.
court really works, like yeah, I think they made a lot of really good adjustments. The one thing I want them to do, though, is just, like, have more of a crowd.
Yeah,
It
I
felt
agree.
like I mean, it was by design that they didn't really have a crowd, but it looked like the people that were, like, watching were just, like, staff.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did have fans, and the tickets were very expensive for people
Oh,
who did wanna
really?
go to. Oh, yeah, like, I think it was, like, a scarcity thing, right? Because I think what was it, like,
Mm.
around 1,400 or something was, like, the maximum. I think it might have been even
Whoa.
less, like, it was a really, really small, because it's like it was like this complex that they designed themselves, to
Yeah.
cater to player experience, right? And I think that's actually gonna be one of the things that they need to contend with a little bit, because right now, as a new league, like, you're trying to serve a lot of different masters. Like, you have this media rights deal with TNT, and you obviously want to create a good on-court product, but you're also trying to draw in fans, like not necessarily into the game, but like for people to like watch and tune in and all of that. But you're also trying to cater to the players, because ultimately being able to get as many great players to come and play is what is going to make you an enticing league. And right now it feels like this is a league that's like catered more towards the player experience and like the development and
Right.
all of that, as opposed to the fans. Like, it's not to say that they've come like too secondary, but it does feel like it, like year one priority was recruitment, trying to get as many stars to commit as possible, try to show them that this is going to be an experience where like you have state of the art gyms, you're working with state of the art trainers, like you are in a 3-on-3 setting where you get to like really work on your game in the off season. You connect with all your fellow colleagues and all of that. And all of that stuff is great. But at the same time, it's like they had to cater to like Sabrina Ionescu's schedule, for example.
Yeah, because then she was like, well, I can't be in the playoffs because I have this like Nike event in the Philippines.
Exactly. Exactly.
Which
And they
was
knew
like,
that. They knew
yeah.
that, and they were willing to work with that. They also had like the All-Star stuff, even though then the All-Star 3-point shootout like didn't end up happening.
Wait, I
And
didn't know they had an all-star.
no, sorry. I mean, like, so Sabrina also had to leave to promote the All-Star
Oh, right.
game,
Yes, yeah.
because she was supposed to be in the shootout, and then she just wasn't. Like, there just wasn't a shootout, which was just one of the strangest decisions that I've seen.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
wondering what happened with that.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
It
then
feels like
and
they
then
thought they were gonna get
Caitlin,
Caitlyn, and then they didn't get Caitlyn, and they just decided to scrap the whole thing.
yeah, because Caitlin said she wanted her first to be in the W All-Star game,
Yeah, and she was
which
like, "Steph
happens to
Curry,
be in
come down
Indiana
here."
this year.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to go. I need to go. I want to go as accredited media to
You
this All-Star
should.
game. I
You
need to
should.
figure out how to make this happen.
Let's talk. Let's talk
Yeah, okay,
offline.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta go.
You have to,
And
yeah.
then because I'm a huge Janet Jackson fan, it's just a random fact about me.
Mm.
So the
Gary,
Jackson,
Indiana.
Gary, Indiana, you got to go
Yeah,
to 2300 Jackson Street, which is the
yeah.
house they grew up in, and just drive by, take a photo of the house, say I
Is it,
went to.
like, preserved? Is it, like, a museum, or is it just, like, some kind of
Yeah,
thing?
it's
Yeah.
preserved.
Oh, cool, okay.
Yeah,
That's pretty
it's
cool.
preserved.
Yeah.
So you
How did
can
you become a Janet Jackson fan?
just childhood Rhythm Nation,
Hell yeah.
just part
Yeah.
of it, just part of
Okay.
it.
That's
I've
awesome.
spent I've spent a lot of money to do the meet and greet, too much money, but
Oh, cool.
still ecstatic. I was
Yeah,
like,
that's sick.
and then thank God she had like the highest shoes, like the tallest shoes I've ever seen. Because
Mm,
I'm tall and she's tiny. Like
okay.
I'm like 5'10".
Yeah. How
She's
tall is
like
she?
she's like 5'2".
Okay.
And also I'm not the skinniest woman in the world. Like I was like afraid I was like, I'm gonna look like a giant next to her. But she figured it out. She wore some baggy clothes. She got some tall shoes on. We look normal together. It was great.
We look
Anyway,
normal
this
together,
is
it's great.
multiple reasons I need to go to Indiana.
Hell yeah. I heard
Yeah.
Gary, Indiana is also, like, supposed to be, like, the saddest city in
Yeah, it
America
is,
or something like
apparently.
that.
Yeah, it's like the
Yeah.
saddest city. It's
But I
got it's
feel
gotta
like
be a real drive-by.
a lot of people have come out of there. Yeah, it feels yeah,
Yeah,
drive
it's
through,
not
maybe in
like
the
a
daytime,
stay and
yeah.
visit, yeah.
I feel like a lot of famous people have come out of there, like, not just obviously, like, the Jacksons, like, a couple different basketball Darius Garland is from there,
Yeah.
Freddie Gibbs is from there, yeah, wow,
I feel like the
okay.
NBA All-Star Game in Indiana did this whole thing about like, "Oh, here are all the people from Indiana," and they didn't include a single Jackson, and I thought that was wild.
That's strange. That's
I was
strange.
like,
And it can't be for, like,
"Absolutely."
morality reasons because Karl Malone was up there in Utah.
Yeah, thank you.
Like,
Thank
yeah,
you. I'm like, "For sure, Latoya isn't busy. Like, stop it." You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
you can get Jermaine.
You
I don't
can
know.
Jermaine is available.
Jermaine's
Well, they're
available
probably all so rich that it's like, it probably takes a lot to get them to, like, leave their house for an
to do
event.
anything. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. This is also true.
yeah. Are
Um,
you a
I
Michael Jackson fan?
I mean, I am in that I hear okay, everyone gets 2. This is my rule. You get 2
Everyone gets to.
canceled celebrities.
Yeah, yeah.
If you have more than 2 canceled celebrities that you
Oh,
enjoy and
then it becomes a
support,
trend.
you
Then we
are
have to
part
start
of the
asking you some
problem.
questions, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but
yeah.
everyone gets 2.
But
That's how
then I'm
I
like, if it's more than 2, I'm asking, like, did you actually gravitate towards him after? Like, I'm like, I got it.
after.
No, that's
What
what
do
I'm
you
saying.
mean?
If you have more than
Oh,
2,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's just my general rule. Everyone gets
Mhm.
2.
Who's your
So,
other
yeah.
one?
Oh god. Oh, this is so controversial. I'm gonna get so canceled.
Well, maybe you'll be somebody else's too.
Like
Maybe we'll both
I'm
be somebody
someone
else's
else's
too.
favorite canceled
Yeah, like they'll listen to this and be like,
No,
"Ah."
I feel like okay, like I feel like my other one is Kobe. Because people
Oh,
don't
yeah.
consider him a canceled celebrity, but I went through it in
Yeah.
real time,
Yeah.
right? Like I went through it
Yeah.
in real time. I had like the biggest crush on him. It was like devastating. I didn't know where I was at
Yeah.
with him for like years.
Yeah.
And then I kind of came around again.
Yeah.
towards the end. And then I went and saw his final game. I went to Detroit to watch him play because it's cheaper than watching him play in Toronto by like a lot.
Okay.
My mom and I turned it into a road trip because it was like a Sunday afternoon game.
Mhm.
So anyway, Kobe's my other one.
Okay, gotcha.
Please
All right.
don't, you know, you
So
don't, for
I
people who are
that's
about
like
to
a
get
very
really
that's like a
upset,
very
you don't
honest
know
you
what it's
picked
like to be a young girl with a crush on someone who gets accused of things like that.
I don't think people will be upset. There's also the aspect of like he is no longer with us as well. Which I do think that sort of like for right or
Yeah,
wrong, it changed the story around,
it
or like
did.
kind of people saw it. I would say like I don't know, like it's definitely changed like some of like the way people like think
He's
about
so
him and
not
stuff.
canceled.
And
I could take him off this list and put in a new
yeah,
person.
you
But
probably could. I don't think
but I
Kobe's
don't have a
canceled.
new person
Like,
to put
yeah,
in
you don't like
there.
yeah. Is Drake canceled?
That's a great question. That's a
Because one thing
great
about me
question.
is baby girl, like I will that's in my
You're
that's
ride or
like
die
just
with Drake.
every no, I'm not, but like I
Oh,
will say that like that has been an intrusive thought for me like for the last 2 weeks, like since the album came out, like just walking around doing my laundry. Baby girl, like just all the time, all the time. Wait, have you heard the new?
no, I
Have you?
haven't.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Okay,
I
okay.
mean, I
So
was a
there's a
big
song
fan
on
of
it.
the earlier stuff, like huge fan of like the Take Care album and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, Take Care is a classic.
Yeah, you know. But
Yeah,
but when he had the album with like the emoji of all the pregnant women, I kind of was like,
yeah, that was a tough
uh,
one for me.
that
That
was
and Meg,
I
that
was
and
less
Meg.
impressed with that era, and then I just
Yeah,
haven't been back on it since.
honestly, like the Meg Thee Stallion stuff was like so much harder for me than any of the Kendrick stuff.
Yeah, the Meg the Stallion stuff was hard
Yeah,
because that whole thing went to court and she was clearly in the right. Like it was
yeah,
just crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, there's another celebrity that I have a childhood love for that I'm like isn't totally canceled, but is sort of on a bubble for me
Mhm.
is Gwen Stefani,
Yeah.
right?
Have you been watching White Lotus?
I have, yeah.
Well, she thought that she could be an Asian girl for way longer than that guy, is what I'll say about that. Like, they thought they were reinventing the wheel. It's like, "Guys,
That
like,
is a
this is
home
the
run.
oldest fetish in goddamn history."
Yeah, I haven't been. That is so true. Also, it's like this season of White Lotus is not that great so far.
I like the last episode, but I do agree with you. I actually,
It doesn't have the twists and turns that I'm hoping for. Maybe I'm hoping they'll come, but it's like, yeah, like it's very like
Mhm.
typical what you think of certain wealthy men in Thailand. Like it's just very typical
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah, I will say the incest threw me for a loop for sure. Just like the gay incest crossover, like the sort of it's interesting. It's
Mhm,
definitely
mhm,
interesting. The
mhm,
whole like, does
mhm,
he wanna be him? Does he wanna fuck him?
mhm.
Of it all, like, you throw in the sibling dynamic of it, like, there's
It's weird.
plenty to mine there, but yeah, I think season 2 is my favorite. I recently rewatched it just to be because I wasn't loving it, and I was like, "Am I just, like, romanticizing season 2?" Watch the first episode of season
No,
2,
I think
it's like,
season
shit
2
is
is a
yes.
classic.
It's so good.
It's a classic. I think
Yeah,
like season 2 is like one of the better seasons of television we've had in a long time.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
like not the best, but it's up there.
Mhm.
Also, like Jennifer Coolidge, like just these gays are trying to kill me.
Yeah, incredible.
Just just a
Incredible
home
work.
run.
Yeah.
Um okay, let's do a little Raptors Homer moment here.
Okay,
And then we're gonna get into our hottie highlight of the week.
okay.
So Raptors Homer moment, I want to ask you because you like so you're from Edmonton,
Yeah.
but you've been covering the NBA for 10 years. So what was your introduction to the NBA?
So I didn't really watch a lot of basketball until like sort of like the last 2 years of high school, like end of high school. Like it just wasn't. I was an outside kid, so like when the games were on, I was also like I had my own game to worry about or something. In
Oh,
some ways,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, so she
Like
plays. She plays.
I was just outside, and I definitely played basketball, but I was
In
outside.
Edmonton, which is
I
a
was
real
at
flex. You're like, I
the
was
park.
outside in Edmonton in the winter.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what I was doing in the winter, but I was usually just like I just wasn't home. Like I wasn't, which is it's weird that I ended up like becoming a writer and falling in love with writing because like I just I couldn't imagine that for like young me as somebody who just
Hmm.
wanted to run around all the time and shit. So yeah, I started watching when I was like 16, 17. And then when I was in like my first year of university, I just was not really sure of anything or what to do. And I would always post in like these basketball forums and stuff. And somebody was like, hey, you should just start a blog, which felt like code for like, hey, these posts are really, really long. And then I did that. And Twitter was a really great place back then. Like I
Mm.
started the blog, I started like going on Twitter, and I was just like following people and then like reading their stuff, and like then I became friends with some of those people, and like we would all just sort of like do our work, critique each other's work, and like sort of like just got better at that like throughout the course of college. And then yeah, moved to Toronto after college, and that's when the Toronto coverage started, which was
Ah. So is
2018,
this like
2017,
oh
20.
wow, wow.
I don't
So
know.
this is like peak
Well, I wasn't
Demar
like, yeah.
era here.
It was a great time. It was a great time to be
That
there.
was a great time
Yeah.
to be a Raptors fan.
Yeah.
Probably the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, my favorite Raptors season is the run it back season. So like defending the championship.
Yeah.
Because it was like this combination of being a defending champion and a complete underdog at the same time, which I think is like
Yeah.
a pretty rare thing. But
Mhm.
I will say this forever, like, as much as Kawhi did for the team, and obviously he did a lot, I feel like the rest of that championship team became so underrated and underappreciated, and they were such a good team. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel
Mhm.
like the rest of those guys get so overlooked all the
They
time,
really do.
and they were incredible. Like, when you think about, like, that 2020 season before the pandemic, like, Pascal became an all-star. Like, they had, like, a 14-game winning streak. I'm pretty sure they were first in the East. First or second. Like, they were up there. Like, it was,
Mhm.
like, they were such a good team, and they were so fun to watch, and anyway, I mean, I could go on and on, but like that was
The
actually like
Yeah.
where I had so much fun because I was like rooting for such a good team. They were defending champions, and yet you didn't have the pressure of like we have to
No, and I
repeat
think
or else,
everybody was
right?
rooting for them too because of what had happened as well. Like, they were
Yeah.
just a feel-good story, everybody loved them, and, like, it felt like the team itself was also, like, having fun, like, they definitely had something to prove. I feel like collectively they were a little pissy, that Kawhi had left, but then they were also, like, imbued with all of this, like, new knowledge from, like, being able to play with him and the confidence of, like, having gone on such a deep run. And I feel like everybody just thrived, like, to your point, like, even, like, like, Freddie started to show, like, this side of himself that, like, we had never seen before.
Hmm.
Um, I'll always like the Kyle Lowry to OG rainbow pass for the corner three in the bubble is just going to, like, live in my basketball memory forever.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Incredible.
Also, too, like Nick Nurse said that he got that play from an old Hubie Brown DVD.
Oh, yeah. I miss Nick Nurse. I will
I
say
miss
that.
fun Nick Nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. Well, this used to be like the hottie highlight of the week used to be the Nick Nurse hottie highlight of the week.
Wow.
It was just about Nick Nurse, and it would be about like when coaches still wore like nice clothes, like not
Mhm.
just their quarter zip polos or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I would comment on his attire. He had like a distinct style, or like he was
Yeah.
carrying his guitar around, this and that. He was into jazz, he played piano, he'd sing sometimes even. He was like getting a PhD in like sports psychology. I was like, this is a very interesting person.
Mhm.
And now he's just become like a massive curmudgeon. And he's just looks
I feel like that's
miserable
what the
all the
job
time.
does, unfortunately, especially if you're coaching the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
like,
who wants
I don't know what the pulse is in Philly when it comes to Nick Nurse. Like, do you
I'm not sure.
like are people like blaming him, or is it just fully on the players?
I actually have no idea. But they've had a lot of injuries this season, right? Like, Paul George is
So
now out for
many.
the season. Like, Jared McCain, who was like the one thing that like made everybody happy, like he's out. And then like there's just like always like the sort of with Joel, like
Yeah, I mean, I almost considered putting Paul George sitting out for the rest of the season as an option for hottie highlight of the week.
okay, wait, you have to explain what hottie highlight is, because that doesn't sound like that's in the spirit of hotties
No, no, no.
or
That
highlights.
that isn't. But it's not about. It's just about personality. It's about
Okay.
people doing hottie things. So the
Wait.
Paul George thing does not count at all. Like
Okay.
that's like me kind of joking a bit. Like that would
Okay.
not be a real pick. It's
Okay.
just, he had so much fun during, his All-Star week break
Yeah.
that he could go back to that is all I'm saying.
I think if Paul started doing the pod again because he's now like out for the season, that could be like a hottie highlight.
Yeah, well now he's podcast P instead of playoff P or whatever they called him
Yeah.
before. Okay, so you became a Raptors person through work. Like, how did you get like out of all the things to blog about, out of all the things to write about? Why basketball?
Oh, this wasn't like an intentionally thought out decision
You
at
just fell
all.
into it.
Yeah, I definitely fell into it.
That's amazing.
Completely. Yeah, completely. It was just like I was writing about basketball on forums, and then someone was like, "Hey, start a blog," and I was like, "Okay." Like,
That's incredible. And then it became your
yeah,
career.
it did.
That's
Then it did. Yeah.
actually that's how stand-up comedy happened for me.
Oh, okay.
Like, I never thought I'd be a comedian, and
Yeah.
then I took I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't really know where
Mhm.
to start, and then I took a class, I took, a sketch comedy writing class,
Oh, okay.
and it was with this guy, Paul Bellini, who was part of Kids in the Hall. Like, he was, the head
Mhm.
writer. He was part of that group from Kids in the Hall, and he was like, "Cathryn, like, you should do stand-up." And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
haha, like, thanks, Paul, whatever."
Yeah.
Right? And then,
He's like, "No, but for real."
yeah, he emailed me after the course was
Yeah.
over, and he was like, "Cathryn, I'm serious. You need to do stand-up."
Wow.
And then I was like, "Wow." And then I just started doing it.
That's awesome.
I know.
Did you
Absolutely
felt like
insane.
yeah, was it like an immediate sorta thing? Like, were you just like, "Oh, yeah, this is it?"
For the first 6 months, I was just doing shows sparingly, so not so much, but then I just
Gotcha.
started hustling like crazy. Like, I threw out all my first original jokes, wrote a whole new set, and I felt really, good about, and then just
Yeah.
started, grinding like crazy, and then things caught on pretty quickly from there.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I
I've
know.
always wanted to try I'm sure people say this to like, people think I think people think that if they're funny, like, they can be comedians, but I have always wanted to try it, but it terrifies me because I think it's very difficult to actually convert conversational funniness into, like, a set, and then also the
Well,
going on stage aspect of it just seems like, ugh, oh my
I
god.
think that is a reason to try it, and you're a
Yeah.
writer, so I feel like you'll already have that brain that, to me, being a great stand-up, obviously, you need to make people laugh, but it's also just about, having a point of view. Like, do you have a
Mm.
perspective on something where, yes, I'm gonna laugh, but I'm also gonna go, "Oh, I never thought of it that way before."
Yeah.
That's where you
That's where
get,
the yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
where it's at. That's what you wanna try to
Yeah.
achieve. Also, too, if it's just about your personal life, it can be more of, a storytelling thing
Right.
where,
Yeah.
you're weaving jokes into a story as well, but, I mean, if you've always wanted to do it, just fucking go for it.
Fuck it. Why not?
What there's no stakes. Like, if you bomb,
That's
it's like,
true.
who cares?
Well,
And
I
then
do. I do.
and
I
then
my deep sense of, shame and humiliation, are the stakes, which are
okay, but you can
much
recover
bigger
from
to
all that.
much bigger to me than any real life stakes. Real life stakes, I don't worry about too much.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with bombing, it's with stand up, what I like about it is the immediacy of it. It's like it's gonna work or not. Where
Yeah.
with writing, it takes
Mm.
so long to get
Yeah.
especially with fiction, with script writing, it takes so long to get feedback, to
Yeah.
know whether it's in the pocket or not. But with stand up, right away. Also, too, if one joke bombs, it doesn't mean the next one will.
Mm. Okay, 'cause
Right?
I was gonna
You
ask you
gotta
about
have
that.
that confidence joke after joke.
Okay.
And then the last thing I'll say is for people who do this professionally or have done it for a long time, y- bombing is just the way to take notes for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So if I
Right.
try something and it doesn't work, that doesn't mean the premise is completely flawed. It just means I need to make some adjustments. So it becomes a writing exercise.
Yeah. It
Once you
is, like,
get
the
over
most
the
honest,
oh,
yeah.
this is embarrassing kind of
Yeah.
thing.
It feels like the most honest feedback loop in the entire world,
It
right?
is. And that's the beauty
Mm.
of it.
That's
That's
pretty
really
cool.
the beauty of it. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Cause like, any other world that you're, like, doing anything creative in, like, people are lying to you all the time,
Mm,
whether it's good or
mhm,
bad, you know? And,
mhm.
like, you're getting, like, audience or, like, reader feedback that's, like, very much based in like, are you having a moment right now or whatever, right? Like, whereas it's like, yeah, like if people aren't laughing, they're not laughing. But I was gonna ask you, like, well, I guess you answered this, but I always kind of pictured it like you get on stage and if your first joke bombs, like you're kind of just like delivering a stillborn baby from there until like the light goes off.
Oh
Like, where's
God, no,
okay, well that's good.
no.
That's good.
Well, I mean, maybe some people like they have that experience
Yeah.
because they will also spiral. I've seen people spiral on stage before for sure, and it's rough. But for most people, or what myself, oh, I'll just speak for myself. What I do is I start and finish really strong. I start and finish with stuff I know works. It's tried, tested,
Okay. Yeah.
proven. And then all the new stuff I put in the middle.
Yeah.
So it's like you want to
Okay.
start off strong so
Yeah.
you earn the audience's trust. That's really important.
Mhm.
So you need to earn the audience's trust really in that first like
Yeah.
30 seconds. Even that's pushing it. Like
Mhm.
you want to earn their trust right away. Then you can start to experiment a little because they trust you,
Okay. That makes
right?
sense.
And
Yeah.
then if it does, and then if it goes sideways, that's fine. You haven't completely lost them because you had
Yeah,
them
you
from the
have like this
start.
thing that you can go back to. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can
Yeah.
end strong. So that's
Yeah.
that's strategically how to do it. But if you're doing your very first set and you have no clue, it doesn't matter. People are going to be a really supportive audience for people doing stand up for the first time
Okay.
because
Cool.
they know it's hard.
Yeah.
Those are my
Interesting. Who are
tips.
your favorite comedians?
World. Ooh. My favorite, honestly, for a really long time. She doesn't really do stand up anymore, but Chelsea Peretti
Oh
was
yeah,
my
she's really funny.
absolute favorite. Like
Yeah.
I really love Chelsea. If that's Gina from from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, for
Yeah.
those who don't know, absolutely phenomenal. One of the earlier Netflix specials before like everyone had a special,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
phenomenal. Like
Mhm.
I would reference that special like all the time. So she was definitely up there for me. And then I mean now like I mean I really who else do I like? I saw Ali Wong live and she was absolutely kick
Yeah.
ass.
She's awesome. I haven't
Yeah.
watched her new special yet, but I heard great things about it.
Yeah, it's really good. Anytime a comedian gets divorced, it's going to be amazing. Like I'm sad I haven't been married and divorced by now. Like
It's
that would
also
be so good for my creativity.
it's that's a move, right? Like you have to just go
Yeah.
through a big life event and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
like work through it
Mhm.
in front of people
Mhm.
for money and affirmation. That's
Yeah.
the move always. I also love that her sort of whole thing is played out like a 3 act structure. Like I think like the first one
Yeah.
it was like her newly being married or about to get married, then like the second one she's like pregnant and the third one she's divorced. It's just like
Yeah, it's
boom.
awesome.
Yeah.
Mike Birbiglia's
Yeah.
My Girlfriend's Boyfriend special is one of the best.
He's so funny.
One of the best. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
another one.
Yeah. I'm a big
Uh
Nate Bargatze guy. I love
yeah,
Nate. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Such a good joke
I
writer.
have like I do like Bill Burr.
Me too.
Yeah.
I
I
fear
don't know if I don't
I
know if he's my absolute favorite. Like I don't
yeah,
have him that, but I do like Bill Burr.
he's really funny. He's really smart too.
Really smart.
Yeah.
His
I love
his WNBA joke is actually really funny. Do you know
that's
his WNBA
the
joke?
one where it's about like women aren't watching.
Well, yeah, he talks about he talks about like why are you asking us to watch women's sports when women don't watch women's
Yeah,
sports?
yeah, yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
yeah.
funny, also
Mhm,
not totally true, but fine, whatever, it's funny.
mhm,
But then he says, you know what women are watching? And then he talks about like Real Housewives and like the
mhm.
Kardashians, and he's like, you like, why aren't they watching women's sports? And I kind of loved that because I was able to kind of like pat myself on the back because I'm like, I don't watch those shows.
I'm
I'm the
better than other
exception. I'm the
girls.
other girl.
Yeah.
But that's fine. Okay,
Mhm.
real quick here. We got to do our hottie highlight of the week.
Okay.
So these are NBA highlights. We're bringing it back. So we had this week Draymond Green doing a night celebration to win the game, but then after the game, Moses Moody called it a nightmare celebration because
Mhm.
it's Draymond. Okay. Then we
Yeah.
have Steph's 4,000 career threes. Absolutely unreal.
Yeah.
And then we have KD and Luka mic'd up during the Phoenix Lakers game where they were going back and forth with each other. Katie was telling Luka that he's not going to make the playoffs, which is hilarious considering where both teams are in the standings. And then Luka later is like, I've never been more open in my life. And it's a very fun exchange.
So I have to pick one?
You pick one. And this is,
Okay.
all these things are very varied,
Okay.
right? So it's up to you. It's always up to
Yeah.
the guest how they want to define haughty behavior.
Well, okay. I will say, and I don't agree with it, but I think that it's actually like incredible haughty behavior from Draymond Green because he just keeps trying to he keeps doing things like he keeps like trying to cash checks that Steph Curry is going to have to pay for. Like I feel like the last 4 years of his career have just been like being the girlfriend that's like getting into fights at the bar and then their boyfriend has to be like step in and then like kind of be like, "Hey, look, we actually don't want any problems." And she's like, "What the fuck?" Like she's like trying to fight all
Her
these
bag is a weapon. She's
yeah,
trying to whip it
exactly,
over his head. Yeah.
exactly, and, like, every time, like, before they go out, he has to have a talk with her and be like, "Hey, look, like, you can't, like, get into these things with people and expect me to, like, defend you every single time, like, you're kinda putting me in these dangerous positions, like, this is just" also, like, just not, like, it's 2025, not the type of, like, manhood that I'm trying to represent. And it does feel like Steph Curry is also evolved in that way too. But I feel like every time Draymond goes out of his way to be antagonistic or to like talk trash or like, like peddle his like 4 rings out there, it's like there's never this like, hey, by the way, like why do you have those rings of it all? Like it's like the fan in the on the court who like starts talking trash to like the best player on the team, but they don't have to deal with actually guarding them, But it is incredible. It's haughty behavior for sure.
Yeah. Great pick. Great pick. See? Love the interpretation. You got it. You got it. You nailed it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. This was super fun. Please let us know what you're up to and where people can find you on the internets.
Thank you. I am on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm really trying to make the Blue Sky transition. It's like
I know.
It's been hard for me. I'm just like I'm so used to Twitter. And then like when major things happen, I feel like that's when you do remember that like Twitter is kind of the place to be at. Like
yeah, my moral compass is with Blue Sky.
Yeah.
The engagement is on Twitter.
Yeah. But I have been trying to, especially lately, try to make the transition to Blue Sky. And it is just a better place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's so much more user friendly. I'm like less addicted to it because it doesn't like feed my anxiety. And it's not like it's not like algorithm based timeline. It's literally like chronological and the people that I actually want to hear from, which is just so
it's not like the first thing you see is like a video of like a grocery store parking lot fight. Like it's
exactly. It's not like somebody's trying to sell me like mega shirts with like a cowboy hat on it and like gothic print. Like it's not that. It's weird for me on Twitter right now, and I promise I'm not inviting it. I promise it's not something that I'm seeking out in the algorithm. It is coming to me. So yeah, Twitter, Blue Sky, and then subscribe to the Ring of WNBA podcast if you are so inclined. We talk basketball every week. We're going to be covering all of March Madness, and we're ripping into what is supposed to be a phenomenal WNBA season. I'm very excited for this coming season. I feel like we got all the kinks out last season, fingers crossed, and it's just going to be awesome. So that's where you can find me. That's on Spotify, and then you can find me on the Ringer. I do still write every once in a while. I wrote a big preview, and I will be
like a massive article.
It was kind of a Goliath. It was a behemoth, and I appreciate my editors for making it come to life.
Hope you get paid by the word.
Be amazing. If I got paid by the word, it'd be like 10,000. Where I'd be like,
it'd be even longer.
We need another section, guys. We need another section.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna write a book just about this. Predictions.
March Madness predictions book.
Thank you so much.
It goes to print a year after the tournament. Thank you for
having me. God, yeah, that'd be just prediction hindsight novels. The Ringer should do those books like the Grantland books.
We should.
That'd be
Yeah, I
cool.
love those quarterlies.
Yeah, I
those
have
are
like
really
4. I
fun.
have 4 of them. Grantland quarterlies
Definitely.
that I've
We
kept in
should.
my book collection. Yeah.
We should.
You'd be
And that
amazing for
makes
that.
yeah. Thank
Anyway,
you.
pitch it to the big boss.
I'll let him know.
Yeah. Thanks again. Thank you everyone for listening, for tuning in. Appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.